Ah yes, the airstrike, a weapon of formidable power, clear stats, and an abundant mass of players using it wrong. In this video I'll go over some tips and tricks you can use with this weapon, as well as what this weapon is really good at and what not to do with it. Even without any increased clip size, the airstrike is pretty darn good at destroying sentry nests while they're being repaired, so we're going to be trying to bust this from over there. If an engineer is actively repairing a sentry gun, it is near impossible for a single soldier to destroy it with any kind of rocket launcher by himself. Because the repair rate is, as you can see, simply just higher than we are able to put out any damage. And even if you do like a perfect rocket barrage with a regular rocket launcher followed up by a shotgun, you're still not going to be able to get it, even at closer range. The same goes for the direct hit as well. Even though it has increased damage, it doesn't do damage faster than the engineer can repair it. Now keep in mind this is also unwrangled. And even with the shotgun follow-up, it's still not enough. The same goes for the airstrike if you're stationary. However, everything changes when you are jumping forward, even when using a shotgun, which isn't optimal for the airstrike. You can see we are able to launch 4 rockets without having any in the clip. And the reason for that is that we do a perfect reload fire. So you'll see here that we start the reload. We still have 3. Now we have 4, but the HUD doesn't update, and we're able to shoot 4 rockets. And then thus completely bust the sentry. And because we're moving forward, the engineer can't repair it in time. We will do a whopping 228 health, and the sentry only has 216. So while the engineer repair is somewhat constant, it happens in bursts. And sometimes you can get lucky by hitting rockets in between the swings of the engineer, thus killing it. So there we shot 3 rockets, didn't get it. But here we shoot 2, and then we get it. Just with 3 rockets, which is something to keep in mind. The dark hit is still good at destroying sentries. So you can see if we try another time, we didn't get it. We shot 3 rockets. Last time we hit 2. So it's all about the timing. But with the airstrike, you can reliably get it every time if you do the perfect reload. However, it does require 4 rockets and not 3. It might be possible to do 3 if you hit the off timing of the engineer swing, but there's no way you can control that. So what's important to try and get this most reliably is to use your best forward momentum rocket jump. Like doing this basic, just shooting the ground in front of you and jumping, will get you the kill sometimes on the sentry, but not always. It really depends. But if you've gotten a kill and you have increased your clip to 5 or more, it gets a lot easier where you can just do this sort of non-committal jump and still get the sentry. So this is a more realistic spot of where to have a sentry, not on top of like a fortress. So the sentry is over there, and we're gonna be on the other side here. And you can see here doing the forward jump, we shoot 3 rockets, and we actually get it, because it's a lot easier to hit it because of distance and stuff. The airstrike pairs really well with backpacks, especially the Conjurer and Battalion's backup, and this makes you go even further, faster forward, allowing you to group your rockets even more, thus securing the kills even easier. I wouldn't recommend using this with the base jumper, simply because the base jumper kind of restricts you too much in certain ways, and it doesn't really combo that well, for reasons that you will see later. But you can see here, even with the base jumper, you're not guaranteed to get it every time. So it works better with a backpack, because then you can also kind of work with your team, and I'll get more into that later in the video. If you're lucky and you hit the engineer on off repair timing, then you will get it, of course. You can also try to use the enemy's sentry rocket to trigger faster firing speed by yourself, but without an additional clip or any assistance from anyone else, with just you against the sentry and an engineer repairing it, this is pretty difficult. However, it is possible, it's just extremely hard. But if you have overheal, let's say from a medic, and you didn't jump into the sentry and you surf on it, you'll be able to get it like this. When it comes to soldier versus soldier interaction, it's not as bad as many people would have it. I mean, the interaction changes when there's overheal, but so does everything else when other classes are doing it, because TF2 is chaos. It's only until you go to medium to long range you start to see a big difference between this thing and the regular stock rocket launcher, because you stop getting the kills and they will barely survive. However, it's important to note that if you just hold M1 when you are shooting, you will keep the faster firing speed for as long as possible. Now, the way that it works is that the second rocket after you are in the air, or the first rocket, will be faster, and then as you land, it will be over. But you can't be mid-firing when landing, like this, so you can squeeze out like an extra rocket. You can do this by holding crouch as you land to squeeze out more. And this is if you have the full clip, and it's very useful. So depending on your technique and timing when landing on the ground and shooting your rockets, it's really going to determine how many rockets you can get out. You can get really unlucky and just get nothing because you will hit the ground before you're able to fire the next rocket. But you can see you can jump on others to activate the firing speed buff as well. The only criteria is being launched by explosives or hit by explosives while already in the air. But you can see here that we struggle to kill an unhealed heavy, and that's because heavy has a lot of health and we're not doing that much damage. And even with a full clip like this, it takes a lot to kill the heavy. But most other classes usually dies in 2 rockets close range. One thing I haven't seen any guides mention is that you can use enemy rockets to trigger the faster firing speed yourself. So basically what you do is just go in the face of a soldier and wait for them to shoot, and then as soon as the rocket hits you, you just hold down M1 and you unload the barrage. Now, they can be a bit tricky and a bit messy depending on how stuff are hit and stuff, but, you know, it works pretty well if done right. It's harder in open areas, but easier inside closed areas for sure. Now, pyros is pretty tricky as well because they'll be able to reflect 2 rockets killing you, so you gotta be careful about that. If the pyro is good, then you're not gonna get the kill. When it comes to demo men, you have to be a bit careful with this because demo men move faster than you, and it's a bit harder to actively predict where they're going, and with the smaller explosion radius, it's going to be a bit harder to finish the kill because they have effectively more health than a soldier because they can move. But once you go inside closed areas, if you time it correctly, you will be able to get like a couple of double rockets off inside closed areas, but it really depends on the demo man's detonation timing and how you approach yourself. Now, this is a pretty tricky, especially if they're running pipes, because they can kill you in 2 of them, and you will most likely also hurt yourself in these sort of engagement. But if you're lucky, you'll be able to get off a barrage before you land, and sneaking out some additional firepower. Now, this is something most people do. They jump and they shoot all their rockets, and then the enemy just jumps and you miss all of them. Now, this is just a testing scenario where you can see here that it's pretty easy for the medic to just avoid all of the rockets. They just jump and then you miss all of them. So this is what most players are doing. They shoot all of their rockets, and look, he literally just jumped and I missed with all of my rockets. So what you should do is not this. Do not empty your clip just shooting just for shooting's sake. Like, be a bit more tactical like this. Save your rockets, wait for it to land. And then you can also like use the rocket jumping trick of jumping on the medic as you land to trigger faster firing speed and stuff like that. Works a lot better than just jumping in blindly and trying to predict, because there's no way you can. Even against a heavy, you're not going to be able to secure a kill. If they're revved up, yes, but if they're not, they're just going to jump away and you're going to be struggling to get the kill because they do have a lot of health, especially if they're healed. This heavy only has a 300 health, and it's already pretty hard to predict where he's going to go and do the damage properly, and he's not even fighting back. So this is the explosion radius normally. We can see we hit all of them. This is when you are rocket jumping. I'll shoot up here and show you that you can just shoot faster. So the radius actually doesn't matter too much, as you can see here. Like, the radius is still pretty forgiving. Like, this is normal. You can see we're still hitting the same amount of players within the same range. So it's not that big a deal. You can see it's the same as the rocket launcher, so theoretically, it's not that big of a difference. It's only when they're moving. So the only thing that changes up close, every class that is a light class dies to 2 hits, but only medium classes like Demo Man takes 3 hits here, where a rocket launcher would normally just have 2. And it's when we get to this range that you really start to feel the downsides of the rockets, where it's gonna take a lot more just to get the kill with the airstrike than with the regular rocket launcher. So it really depends on your play style, but other guides that I've seen kind of tend to oversell that the damage is too little and it doesn't do enough damage, when it's not really the damage that matters too much, but the amount of rockets it takes to get a kill. Like, if you do 98 damage, you're still only gonna kill most light classes in 2 rockets anyway. But you can see here's probably the biggest difference. At this mid-range, the rocket launcher will kill in a 1 less rocket. And a 1 less rocket on every distance later than that. But as long as you can maintain close range, you can definitely put out a lot of damage and get a lot of kills with the airstrike if you position yourself right. So basically for light classes it doesn't really matter that much, but if they are moving, if they are overhealed, or if they're far away, you're gonna see some diminishing returns with the airstrike. So the reason why you should be using backpacks with the airstrike is that the airstrike design is based on you just staying grounded and building up kills to increase your clip size. And while doing that, backpacks will give you the buff you can use to give to your team, so it makes more sense to use those. Like here in this example, you can see that I'm shooting a lot of rockets at this heavy, he's healed, gets a health pack, and still lives. So you gotta be careful about that. But in general, I would say, to get the most out of it, I would say probably Battalion's Backup or Conjurer, simply because the way percentages work. Like percentages of a big number is more than percentages of a small number, which means that anything that buffs the damage, like the buff banner, Kritzkrieg, Jarate, that sort of stuff, will have less of an impact, and you shouldn't really go for it. But here's just some, more examples of how you can use enemy rockets to just trigger like faster firing speed, just get some spam damage and build, and then we can do it again. Like we see a rocket, we jump, and then we activate it. So that's something you should definitely have in your game plan where you're playing as a soldier and using the airstrike, is basically you don't have to trigger the faster firing speed yourself. You can use enemy rockets to do so. And often they don't expect it, and you will get a lot of kills in close quarters. So while the airstrike might seem like it's pretty good at just bombing stuff, it's pretty much a lot better in close quarters if you can trigger an explosive from an enemy and just completely unload upon them. And also, a shotgun works kind of against it, because you want to secure all the kills with the airstrike and not necessarily the shotgun, and that's why I think the banners work the best. The base jumper, it works okay, but you will get much better results with the any kind of backpack. I would say Conjurer or Battalion's Backup instead. And then you can see, like, even with Kritzkrieg, it's also not as easy to secure kills because you do have that less range of the explosion radius and the less damage. And then also, like, doing stuff like this is utterly pointless because they can just move out of the way and then you won't get the kill. So I would say stay grounded, treat it like a normal rocket launcher, farm kills, spam, and then you can make something. And here inside close quarters, we basically have a pocket beggar's bazooka with this thing. So yeah, that's about it for this guide. But GPS, what about WrAnGlEd SeNtRiEs? Oh my god. In the balance mod, the Wrangler is nerfed, so even with constant repair, if you fire 6 rockets and jump like this, you will get a WrAnGlEd SeNtRiE. Easy. But if you're unfortunate sod that doesn't play balance mod and you play with the stupid OP Wrangler that is on the official game, you can literally unload 8 rockets while jumping forward at full speed and he tanks it! Because why wouldn't he? Oh, I just love the vanilla experience, it's great! Like, in these examples, I've actually slowed the game down to make sure that I have perfect aim. And here we're gonna do a bunch of unloads while we're going forward at full speed, and you can see that the SeNtRiE, oh, that's only 6 rockets. That's not gonna be enough. Oh. What do you do? What do you do with the WrAnGlEd SeNtRiE that's being repaired? Well, how about a perfect angled rocket jump? Firing all of the rockets that we can before we land. With perfect accuracy, we launched 6 rockets. And he still fucking tanks it. Oh, but you didn't hit all of the rockets. Okay, watch this then. Literally watch this. How does anyone like this? This is probably the least known thing you can do. A single Enforcer Spy will do more damage on a repaired WrAnGlEd SeNtRiE than the Engineer can. If you get 2 of these guys, you can literally just gun down a WrAnGlEd SeNtRiE that's being actively repaired whenever you want, but nobody's doing it! So, some final tips to close out the video. Don't hold M1 brainlessly, because you will just end up shooting so many rockets that won't hit anything, and then you will have to spend the time reloading all the nothing that you did. So I would say don't fire more than 2 rockets after a moving target, because if the moving target gets hit by 1 rocket, they will most likely jump or fly away and land on a spot you can't predict with the next rocket. And also the distance is going to be greater, so you will do less damage. Well, you do less damage because of the damage penalty. Pacing yourself, very important in any situation. Don't just hold M1 and just blast rockets, even with crits. You have to pace yourself and make sure that you land the shots that you need to. Use forward momentum to bust sentries. Works pretty well, sometimes better than the direct hit if used right. So that's going to be it. Hopefully you found some useful tips here and definitely some new mindsets that you can use when using the airstrike. Because you can find it extremely easy to bait players into shooting you with a rocket or a bomb or something to allow you to do the faster rockets. So I'll see you later. But what about the short circuit? Oh yeah, it totally loses to that.
Deploy a teleporter here. Teleporter going up.